I was 7 years old when my dad took me to Elitch Gardens. I don't remember much from that day. I don't remember riding any rides. I was probably too short to ride any good ones anyway. The one thing I do remember was the Batman lamp I left with that day. The dark clouds hung over the skies of Denver, an atypical sight for a July afternoon. My dad decided it was a good time to leave before the rain started coming in. As he escorted me to the gates of the park, I saw the gift shop out of the corner of my eye and immediately perked up with curious enthusiasm. I yanked on my father's shirt tail, pleading with him to take me into the store. He finally caved in. The store incited wonder as I gazed at the magnificent trinkets both large and small. I felt like the children in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but instead of candy, the walls flourished with toys of cartoon characters, Disney princesses, and comic book heroes. I hastily gravitated toward a wall filled with nothing but Batman and Superman-themed paraphernalia. My sight immediately fixated on the Batman-themed lamp, decorated with pictures of the caped crusader and the iconic yellow, gray, and black of his suit. "Are you sure that's the one you want?" my father asked. I simply nodded and smiled. For years that lamp sat on the shelf in my room, illuminating the dark nights that kept me awake as a kid. The only way I could fall asleep back then was to have that figure watching over me, protecting me as I slept. I loved everything about the idea of Batman. The tragedy as a child, the billionaire lifestyle, being able to overcome your fears and use them as a force for good. He was a hero to me in every sense of the word. Many years later, I met Jake Herman. He was the head coach of my future high school, and I had just finished playing in a lacrosse tournament when he approached me and shook my hand. He was like a giant to me, despite only being a few inches taller. He's about 5'10", with a barreling chest, tiny legs, tattoos, and a stubbly beard being the only evidence of hair on his body. His voice was booming and powerful, but he spoke with such enthusiasm and charisma. The external intimidation would shed away as soon as you talked to him. I was barely a high school freshman, but when I first met him, I knew that he would make an impact on my life, some way, somehow. As years passed in high school, Herman would always be there, coaching season after season, but he was so much more than a coach. I still remember his voice booming throughout the weight room year after year. "Quit being soft! Let's get to work! Chest and arm today, boys!" As the lacrosse team ran through their daily routines on the bench presses, squat racks, and power clean platforms. Practices and lifting sessions would always be succeeded by lectures of how to strive to be better men, how working hard would translate to more than just being a great team, how to turn bad situations into reasons to work harder for yourself, and how to form a bond and a brotherhood with those around you. I looked up to Herman like the superhero that sat on my shelf for so many years. He was everything I aspired to be. He had respect, humility, determination, enthusiasm, even the genius. The man had a PhD in microbiology, earning him the moniker the Doc. He could don a cowl and cape every night and beat up bad guys, and I would have believed it. As a kid, I thought people like that would always be there for me. I thought they'd always be there to guide me through obstacles in life, to pick me up when I was down, to be a hero in dark times. But that wasn't the case. It was a brisk night in January. I'd come home from a day at the shooting range when my mom and dad sat me down in the living room. Anxiety and fear rushed over me. I figured the conversation would be about some juvenile thing I'd done wrong and my parents had convened to preach to me about the dangers of sex, drugs, alcohol, or something else of that matter. What I found out next made me wish that's how the conversation went. My body went into shock as my mom uttered, "They found Jake's body in his car." It was like I was in some sort of trance. I didn't remember much else of the conversation as my mind had fled into a simultaneous state of denial and confusion. In an instant, Jake Herman was gone. Without warning, my real-life Dark Knight just vanished off the face of the planet without explanation. What do you do when your heroes are gone? I struggled with that question for so long. The sobering fact is, your heroes won't always be there. Everything in life is a series of lessons, and I had to choose how to handle them. At first, I chose the cowardly way out. I skipped practices, missed tests, even spent days home from school because I used Herman's death as an excuse. It took me too long to realize it, but when I didn't have anyone there to teach me how to be a man anymore, all I could do was take those lessons and live up to what he wanted me to be. I was tired of running from my problems and lying to myself. When the lamp goes out at night, it's time to stop being afraid of the dark. Everything I did in the following months I dedicated to Jake Herman. I earned myself a starting spot on the team. I finished the year a straight-A student. I simply improved myself for the better, but most importantly, I felt like I'd become a man. In the end, I feel like that's what Herman would have wanted. So what do you do when your heroes are gone? You work harder.